Welcome to Eden Talk, the home of power-packed presentations and captivating conversations. Here, our discussions are dynamic, enlightening, and deeply nourishing for the mind. We delve into a wide array of subjects, from insightful book reviews to the latest in current affairs, to pressing socio-economic issues and profound theological discussions. Sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Ellen G. White wrote, "Prayer is the opening of the heart to God as to a friend." This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of Chapter 11 of Steps to Christ, which is entitled The Privilege of Prayer. Today, I'd like to explore with you the transformative power of prayer, a privilege which connects us to the divine on a daily basis. Ellen G. White highlights how prayer has three categories. It is a lifeline, it is a source of strength, and a means of transformation. Prayer is a personal and direct communication with God. It is a ritual and yet a heartfelt conversation. Prayer is the opening of the heart to God as to a friend. This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of Chapter 11 of Steps to Christ, The Privilege of Prayer. Ellen G. White, a visionary and co-founder of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, reveals how prayer is more than just a religious duty. It is a lifeline, a source of strength, and a means of transformation. Prayer is a personal and direct communication with God. Ellen White emphasizes it is a ritual and a heartfelt conversation with God. It's about opening up our hearts to Him like you would a close friend. Intimate and very personal. In the Bible, David is one of the best examples of somebody who had a close and personal relationship with God. He expresses his fears, his thoughts, his sadness, his anger, everything that he may feel to God. And this is how prayer should be to us. In Psalms 23, for example, he says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul." David's prayer was a reflection of trust and dependency to God. Prayer also has the ability to transform and completely change lives. Ellen White also speaks about George Miller. George Miller founded orphanages in England. He relied completely on prayer for provision of his all the resources he needed. And when you think about it, an orphanage is not an easy thing to run. It requires resources. There's children, there's a lot of things involved that some may say it was silly for him to just rely on prayer and not actual solid donations and something that was planned, for example. But he relied completely on prayer. And there obviously would be days where he would end up in situations that were a bit scary and almost life-threatening. For example, Ellen White highlights one of these situations where he, on some morning, woke up and there was no food, nothing to feed the children. However, George Miller, all he did was wake up and he said a prayer to God that day. And after that prayer, all of a sudden, a baker who was passing in the neighborhood knocked on the door with bread to offer for everyone. And a milkman whose cart had broken down just a few miles close by to the orphanage home provided milk for all the children. And just like that, the children were fed and everyone was happy. To you and me, it sounds like, oh wow, what a great thing. But in that day, it was a very real answer to a prayer that George Miller needed answered that day, and God answered it. One of the building blocks of prayer should be accompanied by faith. Matthew 21 verse 22 says, "If you believe, you receive whatever you ask for in prayer." Think of the centurion whose servant was healed because of his great faith in the Bible. He said to Jesus, "Just say the word and my servant will be healed." Jesus was amazed at his faith and granted his request. This story highlights how faith is pivotal in our prayers. Without faith, our prayers lack the confidence and trust that is essential to see them answered. Consistency is another building block of prayer. In the Bible, we see one David who prayed on a daily basis 3 times a day. And some may seem he looks silly for this, and many did say so. However, when David ended up in life-threatening situations and was, for example, in the lion's den and in the pit of fire with his friends, David was set. All he did was do exactly what he had been doing all along. He prayed. That is why consistency in prayer, it prepares us for any rainy day. It prepares us for the toughest situations that we may face in this life. And this helps us to not only are we being consistent in the act of prayer, but we are consistently building the faith that is necessary for those dark times. This unwavering commitment to prayer that David had fortified his faith and trust in God, the same way as it would for us. This kind of consistency is not about rigidly adhering to a schedule or about praying in a certain way every single time. It is about nurturing a continuous connection with God, much like maintaining a close friendship. The process of prayer. Prayer is a means of spiritual growth. White writes about how we often face situations that seem insurmountable, but through prayer we gain a perspective that transcends our immediate circumstances. She emphasizes that as we spend time in prayer, we become more attuned to God's voice and His will for our lives. This is why in the beginning I stated that prayer is transformative. In praying more and consistently and with faith, you figure out what God's plan is for you. You are transformed and you see what God has planned for you, and this allows you to know yourself through knowing Christ. I would just like to conclude by saying in chapter 11 of Steps to Christ, Ellen G. White teaches that prayer is a profound privilege, a direct line of communication with the divine that transcends our lives through its power, requires faith, benefits from consistency, and brings peace and guidance. I challenge each of us to deepen our prayer lives, to approach God with complete faith and consistency, and to experience the profound peace and transformation that prayer brings. Let's make prayer an integral part of our lives and see where God is taking us next. Thank you.